morning. My name is Mary Saint-Denis, and I serve this congregation as a board member. I use the pronouns she and her.
And I'm Heather Norby, the spiritual life director for this congregation. I use the pronouns she and her. Our opening words were written by the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. To worship means to consider that which has worth. Today we consider with gratitude the many gifts of this community.
The opportunity to be affirmed in who we are and to offer that affirmation to others. The chance to stand up together to help remake the world in the ideal of justice. The freedom to choose one's own path to truth and to learn from the travelogues of others. The space to expand one's own spirit and to reconnect after busy or humdrum weeks with the sustaining truths of one's life. Regular reminders that we must see our world through the lens of love, and the aspiration to consider all life as precious, for if all of it is made of stardust, how can it not be wondrous?
So this morning, let's welcome all of these gifts with gratitude, for they have been paid for with many currencies.
The blood of the martyrs who died so that we can be free in our religion. The sweat of those who persisted in justice's name against hostility and adversity. The tears of those who struggled to build better lives for those in this life. The questions of our children as they understand the world anew and offer their understanding to us as a fresh lens. The laughter and joy of those giddy with the embrace of community. The dollars and cents of those who gave what they could and then stretched a little more. Infinite small acts of service that make the parts greater than the whole, done by those who knew themselves in sympathy with our purposes.
Today, we consider with gratitude and humility what it means to pay forward what has been paid forward for us. And now, with all of this, let us enter into worship with gladness in our hearts.
Our mission here at UUCL is love plus connection equals transformation. I call you now into this connection part by lifting up some of the opportunities for being together that will be happening around here real soon. Please note that there are more announcements printed on the back of your order of service. This Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. in our sanctuary is game night. Adam would like to start a pagan small group to explore earth-based spirituality. If you're interested, please talk to him after the service today. December 10th is our annual service auction, our biggest fundraiser of the year. Here's our very generous volunteers, Ken Schmidt and Dorothy LeMay, to tell you about how you can be involved.
Thank you. Come on up. You can talk from there. It'll pick
I
up.
can talk from here. So December 10th, right after church, we're having an auction. It's really the biggest fundraiser we have, and we need to do it together. It really feels good when we all work together and we make it a success. And Ken is going to explain how you get on and how you can make a donation right online, and it's from the website.
And we'll put up on the screen as it already is here. This is our church website. You click under News and Events.
News and events.
And then 2023 auction.
Hopefully it'll come up.
Hopefully that will come up.
And if you go there, you'll see I've listed all kinds of ideas
that shows the things that have been donated so far, and there will be a yellow button that says, I want to donate. You click on the yellow button.
Which is right here.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
It's pretty small.
But so use your imagination. Click on the yellow button. Then a screen comes up that says put your name in, the title of your donation, and a longer description. One of the things that has been donated so far is what kind of dinner do we have? A Greek dinner. So the title of Greek dinner, our names, Greek dinner, and then travel to Greece with us without having to get an airline ticket. And so a longer description, and then click the submit button once you fill that in. And if you don't do it computers, next week we'll have forms back there that you can
Fill out.
And
We'll put it
if you don't want to do that, email us. Email Dorothy or me.
Okay, and just look at all the ideas. We're trying to do services more than items. And if you have an item that's worth more than $25, then we'll put it on. But anything less is just too hard.
Yeah, we'll save that for the yard sale.
Yeah, we're having a yard sale in March.
Thank you, Ken and Dorothy. Just a reminder that Sunday evening, November 26th, here in our sanctuary, is the Interfaith Coalition of Polk County's first Thanksgiving worship service. That means we are hosting guests from several other local churches and temples, and we want to be welcoming and hospitable. So I need some help with parking directions, because let's be honest, our parking lot's a little confusing to people that haven't been here. So I need somebody to direct parking. I need help with hospitality, food, drinks. I need help with greeting and ushering. And if you can think of anything else, please let me know. I want us to be as welcoming and hospitable as possible. This is kind of a big deal, and I think as we get closer to the date, I'm going, oh, we're hosting all these other churches and temples. Oh my gosh. I mean, like Temple Emmanuel, the Jewish Temple, and Reverend Andy from the really, really big First United Methodist Church on Lake Morton. Like, he's speaking, and he put that on his Facebook page. So let's just be prepared for, a lot of people.
Do you have a sign-up sheet?
Who have a sign-up sheet. No, but you are welcome to get a piece of paper and start signing people up, Dorothy.
Who's providing the food?
We're providing the food. As far as I know, I have a meeting this Thursday night, and I will try to kind of like hammer that out with people. So yeah, we're hosting. Yes.
Yeah, a friend of mine who goes to Grace Lutheran also sent me their newsletter that they're gonna be here on that day. He asked, am I gonna be there? I said, yes, I'm gonna be there. So it's serious.
There are several churches in around. So please help me, because I can't do it by myself. Thank you. One more thing. Jason lost his ring. Do we have a picture of that?
Oh my.
If you find it, please return it to him. Thank you. And of course, please see the back of your order of service and read your weekly e-newsletter for more information. If you are new and would like to sign up for our newsletter, you can do so out in the hallway. If you're on Zoom or Facebook, you can just put your email in the chat, and we will get you that newsletter. Thank you. Okay, let us move on to our chalice lighting.
We create a sacred space by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith. Our chalice lighting words were written by Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. As Ken Wechter comes forward to light this chalice, let us sing and sign Spirit of Life, hymn 123. Spirit of life,
assistant, Melissa Marshall, and her assistant, Jerry Marshall, and the children and their parents and anyone young at heart. This is a message for all ages. Woo! They are full of energy today.
All right. Yay, we're all here. So, today we have a story about heaven and hell. Who knows about heaven and hell? But some of our grown-ups have heard a lot of stories about heaven and hell.
Dakota does.
Dakota? Are you being shy? I need you now, buddy. What do you know about heaven and hell?
Most people say heaven is.
Speak loud.
Most people say heaven is where people go after they. Nice people go after they die. Hell is a place where mean people or bad people go when they die. That's mostly.
Yeah, that's the general idea. Heaven is a place where good people go when they die, and hell is a place where bad people go when they die.
And then you never see them.
Right, then we don't see them anymore. That's right. All right, so this story is from a very old story. It was told in Japan and China. Long ago, there lived an old woman who had a wish. She wished more than anything to see for herself the difference in heaven and hell. I think if I had one wish, that was her one wish. So she went to a temple and told the monks there that was her one wish. And they agreed they would show her the difference. So they put a blindfold on her and said, "First you shall see hell." And when they took off the blindfold, she was standing at the entrance to a great dining hall. That's like a big restaurant with no people in it, just a bunch of round tables. These were big tables, and each table was piled high with the most delicious foods. Meats, vegetables, fruits, all kinds of delicious foods. The smells were wonderful. But the woman noticed that there were people seated around the tables. She saw that they were thin and their faces were wrinkly and sad. Each person had a spoon, and the spoons must have been 3 feet long. They were so long that the people could reach the food, but they could not get the food back to their mouths. That looks pretty miserable, doesn't it?
I have an idea. You just eat it with your hands.
Eat it with my hands? That'd be messy.
Grab it at the front.
I think in the story too, it's supposed to be a little further away, where they can't reach it with their hands, they can only reach it with their long spoon. As she watched, she heard their sad cries. She said, "I've seen enough, I've seen enough. Please let me see heaven." So again, the monks put the blindfold on her eyes, and she heard, "Now you shall see heaven." When the blindfold was removed, she was confused because she was in the same place. She's seeing the same room, the same big tables piled with all the delicious food, and all the people with their long spoons. But this time, she noticed the people were plump and had rosy, happy faces. As she watched, she heard a joyous sound of laughter filling the air, and soon she was laughing too, because now she understood the difference of heaven and hell. What was it? The people weren't struggling to feed themselves. They were feeding each other. They could use those long spoons to reach each other.
Yay! Thank you.
That's the end of our story. All right. You guys ready to go? We're going to go over to our.
Do you understand the difference?
the sharing of abundance, and I'm going to read a reading from Parker Palmer from his work, Let Your Life Speak. In the human world, abundance does not happen automatically. It is created when we have the sense to choose community, to come together to celebrate or share our common store. Whether the scarce resource is money or love or power. The true law of life is that we generate more of whatever seems scarce by trusting its supply and passing it around. Authentic abundance is not found in secured stockpiles of food or cash or influence or affection, but in belonging to a community where we can give these goods to others who need them and receive them from others when we are in need. Community doesn't just create abundance, community is abundance. If we could learn that equation from the world of nature, the human world might be transformed. We are the keepers of this community's abundance. For 63 years, we have been here in Lakeland, tucked back in this friendly neighborhood next to the tall pines. We keep the vision of community alive by generously contributing our time, talent, and treasure. So in this moment, we will take up an offering that will sustain and transform this life-giving community. The ushers will pass the plate now. I'm going to read a poem I wrote now, and this is about a little bit about aging and a bit about Baba Yaga, who I loved when I was growing up. I learned a lot of lessons from mythology and fairy tales and folk tales, and I was fascinated by Baba Yaga. She was such an interesting character with her house on chicken legs and daunting, but she could also be very kind and very helpful. Here I go, aging into my crone years, embracing the discordant strains of Baba Yaga, the witch, riding in her mortar and pestle in the dark forest, the wise and fearful crone who makes her own choices, who does not suffer fools, who has a fence of bones and skulls, of knowledge attained through great duress, of having to complete a fearsome task for help, of craft stirred gently and folded lovingly within, of love and even kindness hidden within a daunting exterior. There is always a cost to find a hidden pearl. You pay it like Vasilisa, with what you can find inside yourself, with determination and iron will. The other, the crone, was always pushed away, except when the strange and powerful witch in the wood had the answers. Then they were not put to the stake, but were asked to do things. Is it any wonder that there is a price to pay? Thank you.
Let us contemplate our joys and sorrows now. And let us think about what joys and sorrows come about through the lens of generosity, through generous acts, or through the lack of generous acts. Does generosity offer you joy? Is it connected some way to your sorrows? While we sit and sing and listen to the morning's message together, our threads of joys and sorrows are woven deeper into the fabric of our lives, creating truth and meaning and transforming us towards our more loving and compassionate selves. In our Joys and Sorrows book, you are able to write any significant joy or sorrow occurring in your life that you would like for the congregation to know. It sits on the table at the entrance of the sanctuary before the service, and I read from it before we take the time to participate in our weekly ritual of placing pebbles in the bowl. Today, Vaisel shares a joy, and that is his offering of Sunday morning community and relationship building. He's really enjoyed being in the social hall at 9:45 to get to know people, new people, people that have been around for a while. It is certainly a joy to build relationships in the community. Thank you for doing that, Vaisel. And Dorothy says thank you to Oliver for using the edger on our grounds, that it looks much better. Thank you, Oliver. I would like to just let us be aware that this weekend we are celebrating Veterans Day, so thank you to all of the veterans here and outside of our congregation for having the courage to do what you do and to maintain our democracy and freedom. I also would like to just name a sorrow that a friend of our congregation is having. She's struggling with some very serious health problems, and so I told her that we would put a stone in for her today. Also, today is the Hindu holiday of Diwali, and I read a little bit about it this morning, and I thought, well, that is a lovely, some lovely wisdom in this holiday that millions around the world celebrate, Hindus, Jains, and Sikhs. It's called the Festival of Lights, and it's about knowledge over ignorance, good over evil, and light over all. And I think that's just wisdom that we can take from this celebration and maybe weave into our own. So you are invited now to come forward and place a stone representing your joys, concerns, and sorrows into the sand that represents the infinite universe. Adam will play for us. take a moment just to sort of name what I'm feeling right now with joys and sorrows. There's so many heavy sorrows right now going on in the world, especially with what's going on over in the Gaza Strip. And I know that we all bring that in with us. And I just want to honor that and also say a part of joys and sorrows is weaving it together. We need to come and be with one another. And even though we're feeling that heavy sorrow, it's okay to find joy in each other and in the building of community. So thank you all for being here today. Think of the first time you walked through the doors of this church. How certain were you of your theological beliefs? Did you come here to be with people who believed the same as you, who would affirm your beliefs? Or were you exploring your beliefs, trying different things on and looking for folks who you could be on this adventure with? When I first started attending this congregation, some years ago, Tim won't believe it because he thinks I'm 30 still. I am not. I was a young adult, which I am not anymore, who had recently left behind the Christian faith I grew up in and started considering myself an atheist. I came to this church because it was largely humanist, and it felt like a safe place to be an atheist and to safely explore what that might look like in some sort of spiritual manner. I appreciated that I didn't have to listen to sermons with theology that made me roll my eyes, but was rather affirming of my non-belief. And things are rebooting here. And I appreciated even that in the hymnals, in some of the hymns that we sung often, that the word God was covered up with little pieces of paper that said love instead. I felt certain of my atheism, and I really was just looking for a values system to mesh with it so that I could better myself and do good, meaningful work in the world. One day, when I realized that not everyone in this UU congregation was an atheist, it finally dawned on me that, oh, I don't have to believe in or agree with that person sitting next to me and what they believe, but I do have to have tolerance for their beliefs. I have to be okay with them being here in this congregation too, and know that they are also searching for meaning on their spiritual path. We're not all atheists here, and we don't all walk in the door as fully fledged Unitarian Universalists either. So that may seem like a really obvious thing, but at one point in time, humanism was such a dominant philosophy here that it was easy for one to equate it with what UUs believed. But this was not the way it was supposed to be. And understandably, there were arguments and divisions over it. That's a little bit mystifying, actually, because you see, in 1945, long before I was born, Unitarian theologian and historian Earl Morse Wilbur wrote a history of Unitarianism in which he found the common themes across the different Unitarian movements that had occurred in separate parts of the world. The establishments of official Unitarian churches in England, Poland, and Transylvania sprung up in the 16th century, and in America in the late 18th century. Wilbur wanted to discover what they all had in common, what made them Unitarian. He concluded that these movements gained unity from three common themes. First, complete mental freedom in religion rather than bondage to creeds or confessions. That is true, right? Second, the unrestricted use of reason in religion rather than reliance upon external authority or past tradition. Makes sense, right? Third, a generous tolerance of differing religious views and usages rather than an insistence upon uniformity in doctrine, worship, or polity. When I reflect back on my days as a new UU here, I remember recognizing the dissonance between what the principles and sources of wisdom said about respect for all, and that we draw inspiration from many religious and spiritual sources, and what was actually happening. I actually heard one of our humanist members, who's no longer here, say one day about another member who held different spiritual beliefs than her, that, well, she must not be a true Unitarian. It was a little bit bewildering. But we've come a long way since then. And I think we owe it to things like Wilbur's concept of a generous tolerance. So what is a generous tolerance? And does it allow for enough generosity to create a heaven on earth? Here's what I think about generous tolerance. We are generous when we allow for others in our shared worship space to be spiritually fed by, say, singing a song we don't like, or sitting through a meditation that is difficult for us, or listening to a speaker whose beliefs don't align with ours. We do it because we care about each other's spiritual needs, and we know that we all have different experiences of meaningful worship. We tolerate it generously because we are all in this together. But I have long held the idea that tolerance isn't enough. Tolerance is a beginning. It was a radical idea in the early 20th century, and it is a radical enough idea still in this world, so much so that we need the idea of a generous tolerance to settle into places around the world and begin a path out of all of this hell. But it is still not heaven on earth as illustrated in our story. Did you notice in the story that the people in hell weren't killing one another? They weren't even beating each other up with their long spoons. They were simply just not feeding one another, and starving to be sure, but it was a miserable existence. One might say they were tolerating one another just fine, but they were not making the life-giving connections that feeding one another provides. So generous tolerance seems like a starting point. And we've been at that starting point in Unitarian Universalism for long enough. It's time to move beyond tolerance and into a fully fledged generosity. When we interpret the story of the long spoons metaphorically, and we envision the idea of feeding one another not as something literal, but something figurative, we can start to comprehend the other ways in which we can be generous. What happens when we are generously tolerant, but forget to feed, and most importantly, be fed? Are we learning from each other? No matter our wildly differing theological beliefs, are we sharing and listening? Think of Mary's poem in which Baba Yaga, the wise crone, was pushed away and only used when people found themselves needing something. What is the price to pay for that? Are we still remaining stuck in the stubbornness of our own beliefs? Isn't that what we wish for other people to get out of? Wouldn't we rather model how to learn from others and adjust our beliefs accordingly? I know that I did not arrive at my spiritual beliefs on my own, and they are very different than they were from the day that I walked into this place. And I'm not done constructing them either. I have so much learning to do, and I want all of you to feed me. I promise to generously receive this learning. I will not be skeptical about the spoon you feed me with. I will not refuse the food by thinking, ew, is that spoon clean? What did it touch last? Is it wooden and are there splinters? Do I even like the food that's on it? No, I don't want to starve spiritually. When I am in worship and something is not for me, I will not merely tolerate it for you. I will ask, what can I learn from this? I may not agree with everything, that's for sure, but I can learn. And I want to feed all of you too. I hope you'll generously receive the spiritual food I offer. In a book called Crucial Conversations, I was introduced the concept of a pool of shared meaning. A pool of shared meaning finds its beginnings in dialogue, the free flow of meaning between two or more people. And in this dialogue, people share their differing opinions, theories, feelings, and experiences about the topic at hand. And naturally, not everyone is going to agree. But in a safe environment, such as a covenantal community like UUCL, everyone should feel welcome to share, and everyone's ideas should find their way into this pool of shared meaning. And when everyone's ideas, no matter what they are, find their way into this shared pool safely and lovingly, the pool grows. And as the pool grows, we are exposed to more accurate and relevant information, different perspectives that we hadn't considered. And suddenly, our group IQ has increased, and so has our ability to make smart decisions. Additionally, our creative potential has increased, and so has our ability to create new solutions and ways of being in the world, weaving our dreams together and getting closer to that peaceful heaven on earth.
Before introducing the song we're going to sing, I would like to read this part of the statement that was made by the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which does the social justice work, and their call. UUSC joins calls for an immediate ceasefire in Israel-Palestine. In the midst of atrocities arising in this very particular context, and in the shadow of layers of oppression and trauma that generate strong and often revenge-filled responses, there is a growing intimidation and vilification directed at those who are working for the liberation of the Palestinian people in the face of the Israeli occupation. Among some, especially right-wing media, politicians, and pundits, the strategy is designed to create an atmosphere of fear or silence within movements for peace and democracy. This was the second portion. I was supposed to read this one now. I'm sorry, I'm going to start this again. In the face of devastating violence in Israel and Gaza, UUSC is joining many others in sharing our deep concern for the people and communities closest to the harm and those impacted by generations of fear, violence, and oppression created by racism and anti-Semitism. No civilians should ever be targeted or killed, whether they live in Israel, Gaza, or elsewhere. The exploding violence is deeply rooted and can be traced through centuries of persecution and trauma, political solutions, US government policy, and colonialism. The vestiges of colonialism have created many of the conditions that have led to the current global state of displacement, including violence, persecution, and human rights abuses. This is a long statement, and if you have questions about it or where it is, it's posted on our Facebook, and you can also see me after the service. I can point to that or listen to your comments. The song we are about to sing, Dauna Naish, is an inspiration of a Muslim residing in the United States, Samir Badri. Samir recruited the composer, a Jew, to set his verse to a tune after they both were featured at a peace rally in Arizona before the US bombings of Afghanistan and then Iraq. This song has been well embraced by those who have heard it around the country. It is structured musically to allow for people to have never sung in Arabic to do so in echo fashion. And also, this song was sung by a band made by musicians from Morocco and Saudi Arabia, who formed this band to play for the Taksim Jewish-Muslim Peace Walk of 2004. And
Thank you.
with that, I will open my page also. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm a little bit more than nervous here.
Thank you. Let us live in peace. Let us live in inner peace. Let us weave our dreams together. Let us die in peace. Please join us in a call and response in singing the song Adam will lead us. Thank you for that. So we still have a few minutes left, which is good because I want us to practice our faith, to practice being in the world the way we want the world to be. So I call this pop-up small groups. And I think today, since we do only have a few minutes, and I know that Tim and Ken worked very hard in lining those chairs up this morning, I think I'm going to ask you to get together with, let's say, 2 other people. Make them 2 people that aren't your partner or your best friend. And I want you to do some speaking, but also listening. So this will be a sharing time, not a responding time, just a sharing, so that we know one another. I'll ask you first if you can name your specific spiritual path. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. To be honest, I'm not great at naming my specific spiritual path because there are days when I am all over the place. And then dive into your spiritual, your theological beliefs just a little bit. I think each person will have maybe, a minute or 2 to speak, okay? Not a long time, and we can continue this in the social hall at potluck, okay? Do you believe in God or goddess? What are they like? Are they a noun? Something outside of us? An adjective like joyfulness? Are they a verb, an action in the things we do? How do you know? So listen to others and just take note of one thing that is interesting, new, or that you could think about integrating with your own theology or into a shared pool of meaning. That's what this is about, creating a shared pool of meaning. And then we'll write it down. You're going to write down a thank you on a leaf piece of paper that will be posted in the social hall on our gratitude tree. Okay? And that's up there. So does that make sense? Okay. So take the time to just listen. Don't interrupt each other. Don't ask questions. Don't respond. Just listen and see what you can learn. And I will give you, 4 to 5 to 6 minutes. We'll see how this goes, okay? And Petra has paper. So like I said, get with somebody who's not your partner or best friend. Don't forget, we have potluck today, so you can continue your conversations. The leaves are to be hung in the social hall on our tree. Yes, when you go in there, you'll see our tree. Joshua just made it the other day with Petra's assistance. It's our gratitude tree. Since this is November, we have a gratitude tree. I wrote about it in my ponderings in the newsletter the other day. So go ahead and finish up and write down what you're, who and or what you're thankful for. And then, of course, I will tell you the good news of Unitarian Universalism, because we always need to take home that good news with us. What? Okay, so I shall just begin with the good news. In our own Unitarian Universalist faith, at the national level, there is a proposal to rewrite Article 2, the part of our association's bylaws that contain our 7 UU principles. I know people are hungry. So instead of principles, we would have values, and out of those values blossom the covenants that we would have with one another as members of this faith. Generosity is one of these values. As you can see, the image of the chalice with the values around it. The proposal in the covenant read like this: generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. So I hope you got a taste of that today and here together. As my interpretation of this statement brings me beyond an understanding of a generous tolerance and towards a fully fledged generosity, because as a faith movement, we have moved onward from the starting point and towards a co-created and shared pool of meaning. This is why it is important not to cling too tightly to our 7 principles, or 8 in our case. Indeed, they have served us well, but rather to understand that as our faith has evolved and found new ways to be together, our values and covenants must shift to a more nuanced understanding of the world with us. Being a part of a progressive and liberal faith requires a willingness to change and to shape that change. Change is inevitable. Much of it is good. And we can generously open up to it by finding the ways in which this world needs us to weave our dreams together. So your leaves will be hung on the gratitude tree in the social hall when we are done. And don't forget there's a social justice meeting today after potluck. Mary, would you please read our closing words?
Please join me in a responsive reading written by Martin Luther King, Jr. Your words will appear on the screen.
No, they won't. I will read
Okay.
them. Thank you. All right. The tech team's cheering us on, Mary. Go for it.
Okay. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied to a single garment of destiny.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted.
Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that.
We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation.
The foundation of such a method is love.
Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war.
One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at the goal.
We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means.
We shall hew out of a mountain of despair a stone of hope. Thank you. And let us join in our closing hymn, number 318, We Would Be One.